Listen, it is so good to see so many of you this morning. We are kicking off this new series, Love Songs, and we're going to have some fun with it all the way through this series. Listen, I want to be real upfront and honest. There are some topics that as a preacher, you're just like, yeah, I can't wait to jump into this. And then there's other studies that you say, listen, it's in the Bible, so I know I'm supposed to preach on it, but it's just a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. And this is one of those series. I don't know how many of you know anything about the book of Song of Songs or Song of Solomon. It is a very candid, honest, and open love poem between a couple. And over the next 3 weeks, as we study this book together, we're going to have a very candid and open conversation about what marriage looks like, about what relationships look like, about what dating looks like, about how to manage conflict in your relationships. And I know that some of us were thinking, well, Matt, I'm not married. I mean, I don't even know why I wasted my time this morning. I mean, I'm here and you're not even going to talk to me. Listen, here's the thing, is there are some topics that are just going to hit all of us, okay? But there are other topics that might not hit every one of us that still need to be talked about. And the topic of marriage is one of those things. And here's what I want to say. If you're not married, if you're single, widowed, divorced, if you're not married, here's what I want to offer to you. There is something that God wants to say to you in these next 3 weeks. And I want to challenge you to figure out what it is. And as we study together and look at relationships and look at kind of the phases of different relationships in your marriage, I want to challenge you that maybe you have something to learn to prepare for. Maybe you have something to learn to bring forgiveness to. Maybe you have something to learn so that way you can share wisdom to others. If you are married, in this series, I want you to embrace it. I want you to understand what it is, and I want you to understand this is in the Bible, and so it's good, okay? And we're not gonna jump around it and pretend that it's not there. Because I have a little bit of a struggle, and my struggle is this, is that we live in a world that defines sexuality. We live in a culture that defines what sex is and where it happens and how it happens and who it's with and all of those things. And the reason I have a struggle with this is because it's something that God designed. And so I have a little bit of a struggle with the world defining something that God has already defined. The struggle is that the church has sat silent for too long when it comes to this topic. All of a sudden, we want to talk about everything else, but when it comes to the topic of sex and marriage and intimacy, all of a sudden, we can't talk about that. There's a whole book in the Bible about it, friends. And so we're going to have the conversation, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to be open and honest about it because we need to have a God understanding of what this looks like. We need to have a God-designed understanding of what He designed. Because when we understand what God is and we understand what He designed, it will be much better in our lives. And so we're going to look at this in kind of a phase approach. Okay? And today we're going to look at phase one of how this relationship unfolds. And that's kind of the date courtship type phase, kind of the beginning stages. And so wherever we're at on the spectrum, whether we're married, whether we're not married, whether we're hoping to be married, maybe we were married, no matter where we're at on this spectrum, we're going to recognize that this is God's Word, and God's Word wants to teach us. It wants to speak truth into our lives. And so we're going to jump in, and we're going to look to see what He has for us. I want to pray, and then we're going to move forward. God, I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for your church. I'm thankful that we can be here. God, I'm thankful that your Word speaks truth into areas in this life that maybe seem really confusing. God, I'm thankful that your word addresses topics that are prevalent all over our culture. And Father, instead of bringing confusion and misunderstanding and even abuse, God, I pray that you will bring beauty. I pray that you will bring perfection. I pray that you will bring your word to the table, and we will gain an understanding of what's going on, not just to know knowledge, but God, for it to shape our marriages, for it to shape our relationships in the future. God, for it to shape the way that we encourage others. Father, I pray that your Spirit is in the room, moving and challenging us. Father, I do pray for the marriages of this church as we go through this series. And Father, that you will reignite, that you will rekindle, that you will encourage. Father, that in 3 weeks, marriages of this church will be different than where we are right now. God, we love you. We're thankful that because of your grace, a whole room full of imperfect people, God, we can all meet together, we can study, we can learn, and we can laugh. It is in your name that we pray. Amen. I want to take just a minute as we jump in. When we talk about going on a date, all of us, probably if I asked you to raise your hand, how many of us have went on a bad date and a good date? A lot of us could raise our hands. Okay, and so here's what I want to challenge you to do. Okay, I want you to turn to the person next to you, all right, and I want you to tell them, okay, think of your best date, okay, and think about why it was your best date. Here's the one cop-out answer, okay, you. Don't turn, if it's your spouse, don't be like, you were the best part of my date, all right? No, explain why, all right? Don't just cop out, and give that answer. If you're sitting next to your mom, this is going to be a little bit weird, but be honest, okay? It is what it is. If you're next to your sister, it's even more weird, okay? But just be honest, right? What was the best date that you went on and why? Ready? Go. Okay. All right. Lots of smiles around the room. That's good. Okay, that's a good sign. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip this around. Okay, I want you to think about a bad date experience. Okay, just something that tanked. You said something. You chewed on your foot the rest of the night. Something like that. Okay, I want you to tell the person next to you, okay, the worst date I went on was this, and this is why. Okay, and this time you really don't want to say you. Okay, just to clarify, all right? Just to clarify. Ready? Go. All right, all right. Listen, we've went on good dates and we've went on not so good dates. And when it first begins, this kind of initial dating process, this is kind of the beginning of what I'm going to call this morning the pursuit. Like you are in pursuit of someone, okay, and you are trying to put your best foot forward. You're trying to, be cool and calm and collected. You're trying not to look nervous. You're trying not to say anything stupid. All of those type of things. And there's some of us in the room that when it comes to this phase, we're good, right? Like we know what to do. We know what to say. We kind of come out of the gate sprinting. And then there's others of us in the room that when it comes to this phase, we don't so much sprint out of the gate. We more or less kind of stumble and limp into the game, right? Like there's just different, but when it comes to kind of this phase of the relationship, it can tell you a lot about the other person, doesn't it? Like right out of the gate, I mean, you always say you only make a first impression once. Well, when it comes to this beginning stages, you make a first impression one time, and it oftentimes can tell you a lot about what this pursuit is going to be like. But here's what I've learned by observation and also life is you can't pursue a godly relationship if you aren't going to pursue godly elements of the relationship. You can't pursue a godly relationship with someone if you're not going to pursue godly elements within the relationship. Which means you can't claim that it's a godly relationship from the beginning and then everything else is against what God would want. It's not going to work out. You can't pursue a godly relationship if you're not going to pursue godly elements in the relationship. So when it comes to the beginning stages of this relationship, there are several elements that we see laid out in the beginning of this love poem as this couple early on as they are in this pursuit of one another. And some of these elements, we're going to look at 3 elements this morning of what this pursuit looks like. And it doesn't matter if we're in the dating phase and you're taking notes because you're going on a date this week, or if we've been married for years It doesn't matter where we fall in this spectrum, these elements of this pursuit should never fall off. You never graduate out of these things. You also should never stop expecting or looking for these things. So if you brought a Bible this morning, go ahead and open up to the book of Song of Songs. Some of us might know it as Song of Solomon. It's in the Old Testament. It's after Ecclesiastes. It'll also be on the screen, or you're welcome to look it up on your phone. I mentioned this is a poem. It's a love poem. It's, most people believe, written by Solomon. All right, and later on in Solomon's life, Solomon has a whole bunch of concubines and everything like that, which are women that he sleeps with at his pleasure. However, it's understood and kind of studied that as he writes these words, this is his first love. This is the feelings that he felt the first time into this. And so this is before he kind of strays from his focus. And this is right at the beginning, kind of the initial feelings and emotions. And so as we look at this, we're going to look at a couple elements of what this pursuit looks like. We're going to begin in verse 1. It says this, Solomon's Song of Songs. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. And we're going to pause. That is the voice of the woman, okay, right out of the gate. We're going to jump down to verse 9. We're going to hear the voice of the man for a couple verses. It says, I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariot horses. Your cheeks are beautiful with earrings, your neck with the strings of jewels. And so what we need to understand right out of the beginning is element number 1 is that there is a falling in love all over again. This couple, as we see right from the very beginning, over and over and over in this book, are words of affirmation that fall in love all over again. And there are attributes highlighted all over this book when it comes to physicality, but the words of affirmation are what bring the attraction within this relationship. From the very beginning, the woman and the man are bringing words of affirmation to look at the qualities in one another that make them fall in love with each other all over again. You see, the affirmation is the attraction. There is this pursuit of a future spouse at this point. There is this pursuit that shows up in the words that they speak to one another. If you're married in the room, and that phrase is going to come up several times in this series. If you are married in the room, are you pursuing your spouse with your words? Are there words of affirmation that are in the middle and that form the constructs of your relationship? Are there words of affirmation that continue to build into one another? Because guys in the room, listen, if I can guarantee you one thing, if you're married, your wife is never going to get tired of hearing words of affirmation. She's never going to get tired of that. She's never going to wake up and she's never going to say, you know what? I just wish you would quit building me up so much. I just really would rather compare myself to the world standards, every day. And so if you cannot build me up and speak words of affirmation as much, that'd be great. She's never going to say that. It's not going to happen because in a world of comparison where everybody is trying to tell her how she matches up to the world around her, you speaking truth and affirming who she is and who God made her to be and the beauty of who God crafted inside of her will never grow old. Ladies, the guys in the room are also never going to grow old of you speaking truth to build them up as leader of your home. They're never going to say, you know what, I just want to feel a little bit weaker. So if you could just not speak words of affirmation and make me always wonder how you feel, I would really appreciate that more. Like we're not gonna say that. We like to hear what you like about us. It's just the truth of the way that it is and the way that God designed us. And so with your words, do you continually fall in love with your spouse over and over again? Are you pursuing them with your words? Now we need to understand that in the Song of Psalms, it is poetry, which means everything is not exact. Okay, guys, listen, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but if you go home today and you are trying to impress your wife and you refer to Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 9, and say, listen, you are the beauty of a horse. All right? It's not going to go over well for you. If you look at her and say, you look just like our horse out back. Listen, she does not want to hear that. Okay, so just by way of caution, all right, it is not exact. What he is communicating is that his responsibility is taking care of all of the horses, of all of Pharaoh's chariots. And out of all of these animals that he takes care of, there is one that has caught his eye. There is one that is more impressive than all of the others. And what he is communicating to his future bride at this moment is, out of everybody else, you are the one that continues to captivate me. You are the one that I will continue to choose over and over and over again. That's what he is speaking to. He's speaking to, out of everything else, you are the one that I'm going to fall in love with over and over and over again. When it comes to our pursuit of one another, element number one is we fall in love with one another over and over and over again by using our words. Element number two of our pursuit, focus on what really matters. Focus on what really matters. Song of Songs chapter 1, beginning verse 12. It says, while the king was at his table, my perfume spread its fragrance. My beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh resting between my breasts. Half the guys in the room just woke back up. Welcome to church, all right? I said breasts. Good. Yep, good. Listen. The example that we laugh at oftentimes is the distraction that keeps us from focusing on what really matters. You see, as this woman communicates her love for her husband, it's not about physicality, although that's the placement of what she describes. But what she is saying is, listen, over everything else, I want you closest to me. And what matters most is my heart. You see, resting right below that sachet of myrrh is her heart. And what she says is, listen, the closest thing to me is my heart. And your provision and your strength and your pursuit of me rests in my heart. You see, godly marriage means a constant pursuit of your spouse's heart, where you are desiring to constantly learn more. I don't care if you've been married 35 years or more, you still should be pursuing your spouse's heart. There's always something to learn. There's always a struggle. There's always something new that they are dealing with, that they're wrestling with, that they're trying to figure out. And it should always be our job to pursue one another's heart. That when we pursue, we should pursue what matters most. Have you stopped searching? Have you stopped searching for what matters most? Have you stopped searching for what God is wanting for your heart and for your spouse's heart? If you're single, have you stopped searching for what matters most and settled for the desires of this world and the fulfillment of self? Or are you searching for what matters most, which is a heart that loves God more than it might love you? Because if they love God, they're going to love you. Have you stopped searching? And maybe have you become focused on the wrong thing? Guys, are you just trying to get in bed? Ladies, are you just focused on getting him right and fixing him? Have we forgotten about what really matters? Which is a heart that's focused on one another and searching to learn the intricacies of your spouse's heart. That's what matters most. Because the physical attraction will change and the physical appearance will change, but the condition of our heart when we're protecting and guiding and pursuing the matters of our heart, it matters more than anything. Are we focused on what really matters? Element number one is that we fall in love all over again. Element number two is that we're focused on what really matters. And element number three is we're fixated on the hero. At chapter 2, verse 3 and 4, it says this. This is the woman. Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. Let him lead me to the banquet hall, and let his banner over me be love. As she writes these words, she's not just looking at all the trees outside her window. What she is doing is she is saying, listen, I am fixated on you. When I look out and I see this forest of trees, I focus on this one tree. Because it's this one tree that loves me. You see, there's a fixation on the one that matters most to her heart. And as she looks at this tree, she doesn't see the blemishes in it. She doesn't see what she would change in it. She looks at the heroic qualities. And when she says, I sit in the banquet hall and over me is a banner of love. You see, during this time period when you would go into battle and you would go into war, your people group, your tribe, your nation, they would carry a giant flag into battle. And the reason for this is because in the middle of battle, in the middle of chaos, in the middle of everything that was going on, if you were confused, if you weren't sure what was going on, you could look back and you could see your banner. Which means you always knew that there was a place that you could go back to, there was a place that you could refer to, there was the place that you could regroup at. And oftentimes in battle, in the middle of chaos, you could go and regroup underneath your banner. You see, because the banner was the definition of who you were. And so you would meet there and you would gain the understanding, this is what I'm fighting for. This is what I'm going after. This is why I charge back in. And this woman is equating that type of love and perseverance to her relationship to her spouse. She said, I want the banner that hangs over me is not physical attraction. It's not sexuality. It's not pleasure. It's love. You see, what she desires more than anything else is to be loved. And when she looks at the man she is about to be married, she is fixated on the heroic qualities of who he is, that he stands out above everybody else because of the way that he loves her. Guys, could your wife say the same thing about you? Do you carry heroic qualities into your relationship that she has no problem she has no problem understanding that the banner that hangs over her is love? Ladies, when you look at your husband, do you build that up in him? You see, it's real easy. It's real easy in life, in the busyness of life and everything going on, to begin to look at the negative qualities, the things that frustrate you. His socks on the floor again. It's easy to notice the things that happen over and over again that drive you nuts after a while. But how would it change your relationship if you began to fixate on the heroic qualities of your spouse? How would it change your dating if you began to look at the heroic qualities of the people that you are in pursuit of, instead of just looking at where they might fall down or where they might not match up? How would it change your conversations with your spouse and even your sexual relationship if you began to look at the heroic qualities of their heart and who they are instead of just the negative all the time? That's what the world says that you should focus on. But how would it change if we began to look at things with a different perspective? When it comes to the banner that flies over your relationship, is it a banner that speaks of the love of God in the middle of your relationship? Maybe it's perseverance. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's unconditional. But have some of us maybe, because of years of routine, have we stopped worrying about the banner as much? Have we stopped focusing on a pursuit and what matters most? Have we stopped looking for the hero and just settled for the human? Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, when a couple comes into my office for counseling, not all the time, but most of the time, it's because routine has killed intimacy. It's because we've stopped pursuing one another. We've stopped learning one another. We've stopped looking at the hero that we married one day. And because routine has become the relationship, all of a sudden there's a boredom. And so before we you can read the first couple chapters of Song of Songs and you can say, oh, this is so sappy. It's like Lifetime wrote down their script, like, oh. But friends, maybe it's supposed to be that way. Maybe your relationship with your spouse, whether it's right now, someday, or what, maybe your relationship is supposed to be something where it's that passionate, where you love your spouse that much. Maybe there's a reason it's written that way, to show us the depth of love that we should communicate to one another, that we should fixate on what matters most and the heroic qualities. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2 says, listen, therefore, since you are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, which is other people following you, let us throw off, get rid of everything that hinders and the sin that entangles you. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And this is what verse 2 says. It says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author, pioneer, perfecter of our faith, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God. Fixing your eyes on Jesus. Over everything else that's going on, over all the craziness, there's this fixation on what matters most. Our truth for this morning is this: a pursuit of a relationship begins with the pursuit of God. A pursuit of a relationship begins with the pursuit of God. And whether you're married or whether you're single or someplace around there or in between, a pursuit of a relationship begins with the pursuit of God. If you are not pursuing God first, your marriage will be harder. If we're not pursuing God first, then it will be more difficult at times. There's a reason the writer of Hebrews says, listen, more than anything else, fix your eyes on Jesus. When Emily and I first met at college, we didn't like each other. I'm not saying just like, oh, hey, how you doing? We just really did not like each other. We both volunteered at the same church, and we butted heads all of the time. I mean, all the time. We argued. We didn't like one another. Okay? And then after a couple years, she saw the error in her ways, and, we made her. I'm just kidding. I'll be sleeping on the back porch tonight. It's okay. Anyway. Now, after a couple years, we spend a little bit more time getting to know one another, and things change, and circumstances change, and everything like that. And Emily had some stuff going on in her life, and one night she called me and she said, hey, do you want to talk? And I said, sure. And so we went and we walked. There was a road that went around the college that we were at. And what I didn't know, if you don't know anything about Bible college, if you walk around the campus like 3 times, you're going to get married in the next week, just the way it goes, okay? And so I didn't realize that, but I also came to find out. But we walked and we talked a little bit. And then later on, about a week and a half later, I asked her, hey, do you want to go out on a date? And she said, sure. And so I've never quite been Romeo, and so I asked her, I planned the date, and we went to a Webb City Cardinals football game, which is right outside of Joplin. They're really good at football. Emily doesn't like football at all, but it was kind of a fun thing to do on Friday night. And so we went to the football game, and we were about 3/4 in the game. It started getting really cold, and so Emily's like, man, I'm getting cold. So I said, well, let me give you my jacket. And she said, oh, thanks, and, it's great. Anyway, after the football game, which I don't really remember much about the football game, and we went to Ruby Tuesdays. Something simple. We both like Ruby Tuesdays. We sit down, and we're talking about what it is that we're going to get to eat. And she said, this kind of looks good, and this looks good. And I said, yeah, I'm really thinking about a burger tonight. And she said, oh, yeah, that's good. So the waitress comes up. She takes our order. Emily orders. She looks at me. She said, what do you want? I said, this burger that you've got on special right here sounds awesome. And she said, oh, are you ready for it? And I said, yeah. Friends, it was a 1-pound cheeseburger. All right? And she said, well, how do you want to cook? And I told her, and she leaves, and Emily looks at me, and she said, you realize you just ordered a 1-pound cheeseburger? Yeah. I'm excited about it. It has not set in yet that one of the least romantic things that I can do is eat half of a cow sitting in front of her right now. And she said, okay, well, I'm just checking to make sure you realize it. I said, yeah. And so it comes out, and I mean, this thing is huge. It's mooing. There's a bell under the plate, It's enormous. And they set it down, and I'm like, yeah. And she said, wow. I said, yeah. And it still has not set in what is going on. I had a professor in college. He said that every guy has a disease. It's called DMS, dense male syndrome, all right? And it is front and center at this point. I have no idea that me eating this amount of food right here on the first date might not be the best step. And so I'm like, yeah, I cut into it, so I can kind of handle it or whatever. And a couple bites in, I realized, what are you doing? And I was so focused on this giant burger. I mean, we talked throughout the meal, but the whole time, like, this is a great burger. This is a great burger. And then I realized, you are a moron. Like, you're sitting here on a date, and you are at this moment more worried about the cheeseburger in front of you than the girl sitting across from you. Not to, be embarrassed, I finished the cheeseburger. And we were leaving, and she said, was it good? I said, yeah, I'm a little bit full. And she said, you're kidding. Looking back on it, I laugh, and I think, oh, why did she say yes to another date? I don't know. But I also look back on it, and I realize that even on a first date, how quick something can slide in and distract. Something as simple as a dinner plate. And we laugh, and it is funny. I was an idiot that night. But when it comes to our marriages, the same thing can happen so quick. A distraction can slide in. Something that seems good goes too far. And all of a sudden, things are ending up in a train wreck. A date that we thought was going well, all of a sudden we're distracted just a little bit, and all of a sudden that date has gone way too far than what we had thought it would go. And all of a sudden we're filled with regret and shame because a distraction just slid in. Over and over and over again, friends. Marriages crash and burn. Relationships fall apart because we were not focused on God before everything else. Because we did not focus on what really matters. We did not fixate on the hero in our life. We don't fall in love with him over and over and over again. And the closer we are to Jesus, the better we will be able to love our spouses. The better we are at loving Jesus and accepting his grace and forgiveness in our life, the better we are at handing it out to the people that are closest to us. We can't pursue any relationship if we're not pursuing God first. It will make it harder. And so this morning, what are you pursuing? Are you distracted? Is your attention divided? Are you struggling with some sin and so it's preventing you from loving your spouse well? Have you forgotten who God made you to be and you're struggling with self-worth and you don't love yourself, so how can you possibly love someone else? Or how could someone possibly love you? What are we pursuing? Is it all about us, or is it about someone else? Because when we see the way that Jesus loves us, it wasn't about him. It was about us. We are called to fix our eyes on Jesus so we can share the love of Jesus with others, especially the people that are closest to us. Why don't we go ahead and stand together? We're going to worship and sing together. And I know a lot of you have me beat by a whole bunch of years, but in 10 years of marriage, I've figured out that, I don't have it figured out, and there's a lot of times where I need God to step in and help me, right? There's a lot of times where you don't know the answers, you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. And if our focus and our pursuit is in the right place, the first place that we turn to is, God, I need your help. And this morning as we worship, that's where we're at. God, when it comes to my marriage, I need your help. It's not a bad spot, but man, it could be so much better because you designed it to be so much better. In the routine of life, God, I've forgotten to love my spouse. It's become about me. I've let the struggles in my life get the best of me, and it's not been about them, it's been about me. God, I need you to step in and do something different. God, we've been married a whole bunch of years, and I've stopped pursuing. I've just kind of, well, this is what it is, and it's good, and we get along. But friends, this morning, it could be so much more. God, I'm single. I don't know what this looks like. I keep asking you. And so, God, I pray that you will bring answers. We can't pursue a relationship until we pursue God. This morning as we worship, let it be a cry to God. God, wherever I'm at in this, I need you to step in. I need you to teach me. I need you to show me. I need you to help me to love the people around me the way that you love me. Let's worship together.